For Global Book Network, I'm Zach Feldman. Thanks so much for tuning in here on globalbooknetwork.tv and on our YouTube channel. Joining us over the phone is an author. She has a new book out called Justice Served, How I Represented Myself to Victory. It is Dr. Sheila Owens-Collins. Dr. Sheila, thanks so much for joining me here on Global Book Network. How's everything going?
Everything's going fine, and I appreciate you being here.
Yeah,
So thanks for the invitation.
of course, and thank you so much for being on the air with us too. Tell me all about this brand new book. It's got a lot to it, and it's really about a really awesome time in your life too.
An awesome time in my life, a growing time in my life, and a challenging time in my life. It's about
all encompassing
actually a
to
very
one.
long chapter that I just right, yeah, that I took out one segment of it. But basically, my mother was put in a very unfortunate, fraudulent guardianship that she was miserable. She was neglected. She was persecuted. She was isolated from her friends. Her friends were forbidden to visit her. And the worst thing that happened was that my mother was functionally deaf. And so she had a cochlear implant. And I had bought her a phone to pair with the cochlear implant so that she could have conversations on the phone as well as FaceTime. Her temporary guardian took the phone away as soon as I gave it to her. So she spent the whole last year of her life basically in silence and not able to talk to anybody.
Oh my gosh.
So that's my warning about things that can go wrong
Yeah.
and things to look out for and how you can fight that. I sort of learned as I was going along, and if I had known then what I know now, that wouldn't have happened. And
Yeah.
so I'm doing the best I can in terms of letting people know.
And I say awesome time because you were able to fight this and get revenge on this, correct?
I was.
Yeah.
So the first fight I lost. I wanted to get my mother out of guardianship, and I
Mhm.
wasn't able to do that, no matter how hard I tried. So
Yeah.
the second part of the fight was having her will complied with, and that was the last bit of the fight and the most important fight because all of her assets, everything that my mother and father worked for, were in the hands of the state of Texas, and so that meant
Yeah.
that me and my siblings would have really no say so about it. And my parents were educators. My father was a professor. My mother
Mhm.
was a high school teacher. They were both
Yeah.
valedictorians of their class, and they gave a lot to the community. And they had a legacy to leave. And my father authored two books, and so I didn't want that to go up in smoke.
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
so, so the last part of the fight, which is what this book is about, was my fight to get the estate back in the family name and out of the state of Texas
Yeah.
grasp. So,
Awesome. And it showcases resiliency in this book too. Being able to overcome just a dark time, and something that, too, you didn't even know that this was happening in the first place. Which
right,
is god awful. As somebody who actually has a father who has a cochlear implant too, those are challenging things to come by, when it comes to hearing loss, and it really takes a toll on you, and it's a big adjustment period too to having a
right.
cochlear implant too. I mean, now technology now, it's gotten better, but it's still not perfect. Did you ever get a chance to speak to the aide that was working with your mom?
With the temporary guardian that
Yes.
took the phone away.
Yes.
Yes, actually, I have a lawsuit against her in federal court now for violating her ADA rights. We had a hearing today, and so yeah, and and this is the part that's so disturbing. She purposely took it away. I asked her for months to please give it back because I can't talk to my mother. I lived out of state. My mother was in Texas, and I
Yeah.
was used to talking to her every day, several times a day. That was
Yeah.
taken away. She never ever returned the phone. And when my mother passed, she gave it to the temporary administrator, and he still has a phone. So I filed a lawsuit for violating her ADA rights, and
Yeah.
her response is, "Yes, I took the phone, but um, the plaintiff, me, I have no standing to bring about an ADA violation because I wasn't the one with the disability." So, that says several things. Yes, she did it. She knew she did it. And yes, she knew she was causing harm. She didn't care. And she was banking on me not ever being able to come at her because of the Circuit 5 law that says that only the person with a disability can complain. Which, you can
That's
imagine my
absolutely
89-year-old mother,
insane.
and she's a guardian.
Yeah, that is absolutely insane. Like
Yeah. And
in any
yeah.
case, what I don't understand too is that obviously your mother obviously unwilling to be able to do things on her own, in the need of this guardianship. Um, how is that not into play at all with the fact that somebody can just come in and decide their fate?
That is a problem with the guardianship. Okay, so first of all, my mother didn't need a guardianship, and she was very adamant that she did not want it.
Hmm.
I had her power of attorney,
Yeah,
and I was taking care of her. And as you know, at the time, she was fine. And as she was getting older, I was perfectly, willing to take care of her, and she wanted to stay in her home. My sister, who has a lifelong problem with drugs and alcohol, was in
yeah,
a cash crunch. And so they wanted her out of the way. And so they made up these stories to put her in guardianship. And the people in the court, in the guardianship courts, were happy to get to have her. The people that are vulnerable are people that are elderly, that have assets. If you don't have any assets, they don't care. They won't bother you. They won't put you in guardianship when maybe they need to. But
yeah,
my mother had a $1 million house, and so they just went after her, and my siblings were right behind them. And that was really overwhelming because I expected to be a little bit more even-handed and it'd be
yeah.
level, the playing field to be more level, and I expected the attorneys to be more um, less biased, but
Hmm.
it's economically driven, and so they're driven by the money. So getting
Yeah,
back to so the second part of the story, which is the
yeah.
most important part, was so now my mother has passed, and my sister and her daughter make up all of these stories about the will. My mother had a will, I was executor, so they said that the will was forged, the notary was forged, everything was forged, and the courts go along with that craziness. And I think that's an inefficiency, and it's just drives the cost up unnecessarily. The
Hmm.
judge, who had been very biased to the court-appointed attorneys and to my disgruntled family the whole time, and so we had the will contest, and at the very end, he admitted the will, but he said that he would not that I could not be the executor because of the family discord. Now, there is a state law in the Supreme Court in Texas that says that the lower courts should, by all means necessary,
Hmm.
comply with the decedent's will. The judge really doesn't have authority to override it. And and they say specifically that if there's family discord, there's not a reason to go against the decedent's wishes.
Hmm.
And that's what he did. So that was my first reason to file a lawsuit. So eventually I filed a lawsuit, and I charged him with bias, and saying that I was disqualified when I wasn't, according to the law. And what the readers need to know about suing a judge is that you have to prove that you have to prove that um, there's a semblance of bias. They don't have to be biased, but if they give the perception that they're biased, then that's enough. Which sounds nebulous, but it works out. So because maybe proving somebody's bias, it may be hard to do if you have to have objective facts or numbers. But if you can prove that someone that is not familiar with the case thinks that they have a bias, then there's a bias. What
That's
happened in my
crazy.
case that I was able to prove that there was a bias was there are two things that was besides the things that he had done in all his rulings that counted. But my my niece was writing. I had a case in the appellate court that was suing the court-appointed attorneys, and she and the court-appointed attorneys had each other on speed dial. So she was writing the court-appointed attorneys, giving them an update on what was going on in the will trial, and complaining to the appellate court that I was abusing the law. And finally, the appellate court told her to
Hmm.
stop because that's ex parte communication.
Yeah.
Um, but the last thing that she wrote to the appellate court was that the judge said that I could not, that I was disqualified. So I I opined that she thought that she had a special relationship with the judge. That the fact that that she could that he said that I wasn't disqualified, that I was disqualified. She thought that that was sort of in her favor, and so that showed bias. And the fact that she was writing the appellate court in favor of the attorneys, that was bias. But then the last thing was the story was published in a legal magazine, and someone from Facebook commented, and it was just a really brief comment, but it sealed it. They said, "I can't believe this
Hmm.
BS." My
Yeah.
son was at Yale, and
It's
so they said
insane.
someone from Yale is not qualified to be the executor. And so that shows that somebody, an outsider, who's looking at the case, thinks the judge is biased. And so that just wrapped up my case. And some of it was just so serendipitous, but it worked. So in terms of the moment that I felt that, okay, finally the tide is turning and I can win this case was I filed a motion for recusal, and I gave him, and it's all in law. I mean, it's nothing is arbitrary. So you have so many days to file the motion. They have so many days to reply, and
Yeah, and
so I
and
had
now you got this lawsuit too going on as well.
yeah,
And it's just, obviously we don't want to talk about a current pending case, and ruin anything for you. But obviously this book, showcases a lot of situations that you've been through with with trying to fight for justice.
right,
And I'm praying that you guys get justice on this too, because I mean it's such a compelling book, not only about the story structure about what happened, but it's also a heart wrenching book too, because this is your mother in the first place
right,
too.
right,
You know,
right.
when you were obviously when you were dealing with all this, was there ever a moment in your time when you were just like, I need to be there in Texas, I need to be there in Texas?
Well, yeah, several times. Yeah,
Yeah.
in fact, yeah, several times. Because the telephone conversation was cut off, and
Hmm.
so then I had to try to go as often as I could in between working, to be with her. But I
Yeah.
want to just tell the last part of the story. So the judge had until 5 o'clock to decide if he was going to withdraw or not. In the meantime, my
Hmm.
attorneys were trying to talk me into withdrawing the motion. They did not like that I sued the judge because I went around them because they weren't doing their job. I went around them. I sued them. I filed a motion for recusal. He had till 4:59 till 5 o'clock to say yes or no. And at 4:59, while my attorneys were trying to tell me that, unless I withdrew it, they were going to drop me, he resigned. He recused himself. So
That's
that's when I
horrible.
knew.
That's
Yeah,
horrible.
yeah.
That's insane. I mean, listen, I do you feel like the justice system is broken?
Yes, very much.
Yeah. What
And you
about
know what? And it's not just Texas. Florida has a problem. Um, I'm going to talk on Monday. There's a problem here in Maryland where I am. I think I'm hoping that we can get more attention nationally because it is a very big problem. Only stars like Britney Spears, gets a lot of attention, but there are just a lot of people that don't have the stature that she has that are getting victimized.
yeah, 100%. And there's a lot of people out there too who are just, no joke, like they're being accused for things, that are just astronomically untrue. And then there's
Right.
there's things like you're in your situation where you know not only should somebody be prosecuted for the fact that they did this to somebody who was unwilling to understand what was going on, But also, I mean, this is just inhumane in the first
It is
place.
inhumane,
You
yes,
know,
right. And
and my heart goes out to you guys seriously about this, and it's such a book that needs to be read too because again, she was not in a state um, where she could have done anything to make
right.
this any better.
Right, right, right,
Yeah,
right. And I mean, because people don't realize once you become a ward of the court, all of your constitutional rights are taken away. Prisoners have more rights. You can't vote. You can't get married. You can't. You lose all access to your finances, total.
yeah,
And so that person becomes you.
yeah. You do. It does, 100%. Well, let me ask you, doctor. What can people do to prevent this from happening to their own relatives?
I think that they should just be aware, learn about it as much as you can, have a really good estate plan in place. I think that's really important. I'm a pediatrician, and this came about because of dysfunctional siblings. And so, as a
Yeah,
pediatrician, when I talk to parents, I tell them to pay attention to the dynamics between their kids. Sibling rivalry is normal, but if it gets prolonged or protracted or too intense, they need to get help because it doesn't get better.
yeah,
And and so, that's my best bet because most of these cases do come from families where there's, jealousy but it also, you can get put into guardianship by a caretaker that's disgruntled, someone that you fired. I know someone that the bank that they had their money at turned them in. So anybody can turn you in
insane,
and take you to court and recommend that you're a guardian, that you be put in guardianship. And
insane.
once
Well,
you get in, it's hard to get out. I mean,
of
you almost have
course,
to die to get out.
yeah. Look at Britney Spears. I mean, we finally got her free.
Yeah,
Um, you
but
know,
she is the exception. She is really the exception.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. It really is insane. I think the laws on guardianship need to be adjusted, and not only that too. I think I think cases like this need to be heard more. Because they're just so heartbreaking. And but I think I'm praying that you guys get the justice that you deserve, and I'm also praying that people read this book too because it's such an important book to not only keep on the shelf but also read and understand why and learn from
Right.
why this is such a problem.
Right,
You know,
right, right, right. It's
100%.
yeah, it's a lesson in yeah, learning the system, learning yourself,
Mhm.
and shoring up your whatever qualities that you need to have to make the fight. Yeah, it's a lesson. There's several lessons there.
100%. Well,
And
doctor,
I'm
what
going
do
to
you?
write another book, so stay tuned
I
because
was
I
about to ask
this
you
is
that too. What are we doing next?
yeah, I'm gonna that was just the judge part, but I'm gonna write more about the
Yeah,
guardianship and what happened in guardianship and what happened post getting the house back into the estate. I mean, the drama continues
hmm,
because all it takes is one or two dysfunctional family members, and the whole family and everybody around them gets caught into a vortex, and it just goes on and on. When actually, my sister and all their concerned parties, they really need mental help and they need social services. And
yeah,
the courts aren't able to vet that. And that's one of the reforms that need to happen. They aren't able to figure out who has an ulterior motive and who doesn't.
yeah, hundred
And,
percent.
and the elderly or the child gets victimized. They are part of that lack of information.
Yeah, they are 100%. Well, I'm excited to see that book come out too. Definitely come back when you have that book out. But right now, obviously, go check out this book. It's called Justice Served: How I Represented Myself to Victory. It's on Amazon. It's everywhere books are sold. And Dr. Sheila Owens-Collins, thank you so much for joining me here on Global Book Network to talk a little about this too, because this is such an important topic.
Thank you for having me. And
Anytime.
I'll look for you with the next book, which will be out in another year.
Awesome. Well, we look forward
Okay.
to talking to you then too as well. And
Okay.
thanks so much for joining us here on Global Book Network. And you've been watching Global Book Network here on YouTube and on our YouTube on our website at globalbooknetwork.tv. Check out all of our past interviews with the different authors on our website and on our YouTube. And we'll see you here next time for another author interview. And we'll see you here next time.